This was supposed to be an Olympic year, the year of 2020 vision when Team Jamaica would make the world see clearly why it was still a top force within the track and field world despite you know who hanging up his iconic spikes forevermore. The anticipation was high, especially after one of our greatest world championship performances ever, and then, you know what happened. Though the summer games are postponed until 2021, it does allow us the chance to truly appreciate the highlights Team Jamaica has given at Olympics gone by. Not just on the track either. Through heat, rain, and even ice, the black, green, and gold has weathered quite a bit to put itself on the map. But they've allowed such a small country to shine so bright on the biggest of stages for decades on end, creating a culture and personality we've been blessed to be exposed to. This is Mark from 876411, and our original top 10 looks at the biggest Olympics moments, summer and winter, Team Jamaica has ever produced. A very honorable mention to former cyclist David Weller and his bronze medal ride in the 1000-meter time trial at the 1980 Summer Games in Moscow. To date, this remains the only medal Jamaica has won at the Olympics outside of track and field, with record-breaking world champion swimmer Aaliyah Atkinson coming the closest to breaking that drought at London 2012. Now let's get to the list. Number 10, Team Jamaica's first golden moments. Jamaica's first golden generation was formed way before the Usain, Shelly's, Merlene's, and those types were born. Heck, it was formed before Jamaica as we know it was born. Still firmly under British rule by 1948, the Olympics in London ironically proved to be the breeding ground for Jamaica's first array of track stars, namely Arthur Wint and Herb McKinley. The Manchester-bred Wint won his first senior gold at just 17 in the 800 meters at the Central American and Caribbean Games and never looked back. In London, he outlasted his teammate McKinley to win Jamaica's first ever Olympic gold medal in the men's 400 meters. 4 years later in Helsinki, George Roden, a world record holder in the 400 meters, would succeed Wint as the champion in the event, culminating a journey that saw him rise from a collegiate prospect at Morgan State University to Olympic gold medalist. And who did he just edge out to win the gold? Herb McKinley. Yup, Herb was very much snakebit in these individual events at the Olympics, but make no mistake, the Clarendon native and former University of Illinois star is just as vital in Jamaica's initial bid as a track and field powerhouse. He won 3 Olympic silver medals as well as relay gold alongside Wint, Roden, and Leslie Lang in Helsinki. In his later life, he became J3A president and won the Order of Merit for his long-standing service to the sport. Undoubtedly, without the contributions from these men, the foundations for our emergence in track and field would have never been set, and for that, we salute them. Number 9, black, green, and cold. Jamaica and ice or snow get along just as well as cattle and Movado did in the mid to late 2000s. But at times, this tropical island, which serves up heat on the regular, can conquer the cold, leading us to competing on the biggest of stages. The 1988 Winter Games in Calgary bore witness to the intriguing novelty of a Jamaican bobsled team, a team that was only assembled based on a random pushcart race watched by American businessmen. This team consisted of Devon Harris, Michael White, Freddie Powell, Dudley Stokes, and Chris Stokes. They had to use makeshift equipment to train, and none of these men involved had any experience with a bobsled. But who cared? The fact that they made it this far to our games made it an instant feel-good story. They struggled once they competed in Calgary, but who cared? This was the ultimate underdog story that won the hearts of so many that was later transformed into the cult classic known as Cool Runnings. Since then, the men's national bobsled team has competed in 5 other Winter Olympics, with their best performance being 14th at the 1994 edition in Lillehammer. In 2018, history was created again when Team Jamaica's women's bobsled team earned their first Olympic qualification, booking their place at the Pyeongchang Winter Games. That team featured former US Olympic bobsledder Jasmine Fenley Victorian, alongside a pair of former sprinters in 2013 World Championship gold medalist Kerry Russell and Homewood Technical alum Audra Segree. Like the 88 team, the story itself outweighed the actual result, and Segree, one of Jamaica's most attractive athletes, I should say, is aiming to set another precedent, training in the hopes of qualifying for the 2022 Winter Games in the skeleton. Hope she makes it. Number 8, Quarry's golden quest in Montreal. Few men embody the dedication and prowess embedded within the Jamaican track and field landscape than Donald O'Reilly Quarry. A graduate of the University of Southern California, Quarry was Jamaica's first post-independence track and field prodigy, qualifying for his first Olympics at just 17 in 1968 but could not compete due to injury. That injury would do little to quell his rise to stardom and resolve, winning a combined 8 gold medals at the Pan Am and Commonwealth Games in the early 70s. In addition to that, he became one of a select few to hold both the 100-meter and 200-meter world records at the same time. He was clearly earmarked for greatness, and despite again being hampered by injury while competing in the 1972 Summer Games, at the 76 Games in Montreal, he absolutely would not be denied. Quarry, with that top-notch Afro sideburns combo, we must add, won Jamaica's first Olympic gold medal in the 200 meters, while capping silver in the 100 meter, finishing behind Trinidad and Tobago's own emerging legend, Hazel Crawford. He would add medals at the 1980 and 84 games for good measure, but could you imagine how many more goals he'd have racked up if not for injuries and a car accident that threatened his participation in 1980? Nonetheless, his achievements for the longest while were standard bearing. He's got a statue, has a high school named after him, and has been Jamaica's technical leader amidst the golden generation he certainly paved the way for. Number 7, Merlene Ottey. Now, this is a bit of cheating on my part since this countdown is about moments and not career achievements, but we'd seriously be doing an injustice if we restricted the most decorated Jamaican Olympian of all time and our first female track superstar to just one moment. It wouldn't feel right. Merlene Ottey is a phenomenon, and even with the female greats that have succeeded her, she's still regarded by quite a few Jamaicans as the greatest female track star ever. She won her first of 9 Olympic medals in Moscow at age 20 and her last at age 40 in Sydney. She won medals in 5 of her 6 Olympic Games representing Jamaica, and if she wasn't competing in an era filled with athletes suspected of drug use, she may have had a more golden ring to her nickname instead of the Bronze Queen moniker she's been tagged with. The closest she came to gold was at Atlanta 96, where on the back of 2 straight 200-meter world titles, she seemed destined for a long-awaited breakthrough on the Olympic stage. And man, was she damn close, losing on a photo finish in the women's 100-meter final to America's Gail Divas and those Wolverine-esque claws of hers. Man, those nails were long. Anyway, it was our second photo finish defeat to Divas after a more controversial defeat at the 93 World Championships and a memorable yet heartbreaking result. Ottey's last Olympics were Jamaica unfortunately were filled with controversy as she basically talked her way into the team for the 2000 Games at the expense of national champion Peter Gate Dowdy and was vehemently protested by her own teammates. She even switched nationalities to Slovenia, qualifying for the 2004 Games in Athens aged 44. But all that has long been water under the bridge, and Ottey's immeasurable legacy set the trend for the greats after her to follow with aplomb. No doubt one of the greatest to ever do it. Number 6, 1, 2, 3 at London 2012. Now, for a moment I personally got to witness in the madhouse during Olympic season known as Halfway Tree. Those games gave Halfway Tree its biggest worldwide acclaim since Junior Gang's album with the same name won a Grammy 10 years earlier. An atmosphere built up thanks to the exploits of one Usain Bolt, and you know there'll be more on him later. This was the moment that set Halfway Tree and the whole island alight more than any other during the London Games. Bolt and his teammate turned rival, Yohan Blake, were easily the biggest notables going into the men's 200-meter final. But the story for Jamaicans revolved around a somewhat quirky but talented young man named Warren Weir. The Calabar man had a solid 2012 season and went in with a real chance of joining his more fancied national counterparts on the podium. Bolt himself sensed this and told Weir before the race not to focus on trying to catch up to him, but rather run his own race. That advice proved very sound. As expected, Bolt won the race and for good measure gave Blake a small shush at the line after Blake did the same gesture following his win over Bolt at the Olympic trials. But the focus from the bend onwards in the race was on Weir. The crowd willed him, his teammates challenged him, and he pushed on, taking bronze and completing Jamaica's second ever sweep of the medal stand at an Olympic race to mass hysteria. A young star was born, and while that star only shone for a little while, that bright moment kept him etched in Jamaican folklore for generations to come. Number 5. Deon Hemmings overcomes hurdles for historic goal. With all these statues being given out in the last couple years, and rightfully so, to our record-breaking track stalwarts, the question now is, which track star of yesteryear next deserves the honor? To me, without question, Deon Hemmings should be next to be cast in bronze after a historic golden moment in Atlanta in '96. On July 31st of that year, Hemmings contested the women's 400-meter hurdles final that included the previous year's world champion in the event, Kim Batten. Before this race, no Jamaican woman had ever won Olympic gold, and this final came 4 days after Ottey came agonizingly close to being the first in that 100-meter final I talked about earlier. Hemmings, against strong opposition, rose to the occasion, not only winning gold in the 400 hurdles, but doing so in an Olympic record time that stood until Athens 2004. This was a monumental breakthrough for Jamaica and became the hallmark of a great career that included 2 Olympic silvers in 2000, 4 World Championship medals, and an indoor world title. Her breakthrough in the event was later built on by Merlene Ottey, who won gold at Beijing 2008 in an Olympic record time that still stands today, plus she owns the second fastest time in the event's history. While Walker's exploits were amazing, Hemmings was the foundation, the one who first proved that Jamaican women could be golden on the biggest stage. Her chapter in Jamaica's track and field story is one of the most vital, and at some point, she deserves to be richly honored for such contributions. Number 4. Pocket Rockets blast off to great heights. Everyone knows who the GOAT on the men's side of things is, but when you consider what Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce has done in her distinguished career, a very strong argument could be made that she's the greatest female sprinter ever. No female has won as many 100-meter world titles as her, and she's won 9 world championship golds, with her most recent ones coming just 2 years after giving birth. And she's a 2-time Olympic champ that could very well go out with a 3rd in 2021. The pride of Waterhouse and her meteoric rise to legendary status is hard to duplicate or replicate. And it all started in 2008 in Beijing as she captured the women's 100-meter title just a year after competing in her first major championship. It wasn't just that she topped the field rather comfortably, but got to revel in the moment alongside teammates Sharon Simpson and Karan Stewart as they historically swept the podium in a 1-2-2 finish. 4 years later, she was tasked with trying to retain her title in a tough field that included Carmelita Jetta, Veronica Campbell, and Allyson Felix, but retain she did, in a fantastic race which also saw VCB win bronze. Her quest for a 100-200 double was thwarted by Felix, who with a silver there as well as in the relay, her status as a sprint great was boosted even further. Number 3. VCB becomes a Greek goddess in Athens. While Shelly's greatness on the Olympic stage bumped up Jamaica's reputation in the sport several notches, Veronica Campbell-Brown's dominant double at the 2004 Olympics in Athens was not only the coronation of Jamaica's newest success story, but ushered in the aforementioned golden generation we've been spoiled by ever since. Emerging from the historically elite spring factory known as Veer Technical, VCB didn't have to wait long to enjoy Olympic success, winning silver in the 4x1 women's relay at Sydney 2000, aged 18, just weeks before becoming World Junior Champion. In 2004, she captured her first individual gold medal by winning bronze in the women's 100 meter, but the 200 was where she truly excelled. After a superb bend, VCB was simply not gonna be caught, and with her win, became the first Jamaican woman to win sprint gold at the Olympics. That was just an appetizer compared to the main course she'd served up in the 4x1, as she anchored Team Jamaica featuring Kiana Lawrence, Sharon Simpson, and Elaine Bailey, and absolutely wiped the floor with the competition. Second place Russia was nowhere in sight by the final 50 meters, an Olympic showing for the ages. She proved it wasn't a fluke 4 years later, retaining her 200-meter Olympic title in Beijing, and with a combined 18 medals at Worlds and Olympics combined, she's more than earned her place as one of the greatest ever. Number 2. Elaine Thompson's double delight in Rio. As we've established, Shelly and Veronica were pretty darn great when it came to the Olympic stage and both proved themselves as formidable forces over the 100 and 200 meters. But while each has won gold over one of the distances in the Olympics, only one Jamaican woman has captured gold in both events on the same Olympic stage, and her name is Jillian Thompson. They simply called her ET, and she phoned home an elite showing at Rio 2016. What makes this moment even more compelling is the fact her road to it was a bumpy and obscure one to say the least. She wasn't a champ standout like VCB, Shelly, and Merlene were before her. She was even kicked off the Manchester High track team for disciplinary reasons, and early on, things just weren't promising. She got a lifeline though, thanks to Stephen Francis's brother Paul, who recruited her to UTEC's track team. Her capabilities started to show on the local collegiate scene, and she even got called up to the 2014 Commonwealth Games squad. The 2015 season really showed her potential though, and that potential led her to an impressive silver medal in the 200 meters just behind Daphne Schippers of the Netherlands. But in 2016, she would get hers against Schippers and then some. That season led to some believing that she could top the podium in Rio, and she didn't just win, she did so in style. Thompson started her assault on the history books by comfortably winning the women's 100 meters, ensuring Jamaica's hold on the gold in the event for a third edition running. Then in the 200, she avenged her loss the prior to Schippers, pulling away down the stretch to complete the historic double. She genuinely looked amazed by what she pulled off, considering the conundrum her career was in just 5 years prior. Time will tell if she'll ever return to these heights with a nagging Achilles problem slowing down her charges somewhat, but they can never take away this achievement from the little girl from Banana Ground who grew up to be a superstar. And number one, everything about Usain Bolt. I mean, duh, right? What more can possibly be said? What superlatives are left to describe a man who not only became the best to ever do it in his sport, but became the biggest beacon of Jamaican culture since Robert Nesta himself? He gave Jamaica a newfound level of fame and aura that people all over the world wanted a slice of. And it was thanks to a talent and mentality that only a chosen few athletes in history are blessed with. We know the story. 2002 World Juniors in Kingston was his breakout. 2004 was his first Olympic exposure at age 17, where people knew his promise, but he and his inner circle knew he was not at all right physically. His technique, back, knees, and overall approach to his craft was transformed, and with that transformation, the greatness we knew he had was unlocked to devastating effect. At Beijing 2008, he broke the world record in the 100 while putting social distancing in fashion long before it became a necessity. Then he had a personal race with the clock in the 200 final and broke that record just. Any questions that were still left by those performances were answered emphatically with 9.58 and 19.19 the next year. And in 2012, his claim to GOAT status was firmly solidified with 9.63 in the fastest Olympic 100-meter final ever and the aforementioned 1-2-3 in the 200. And for good measure, he outdueled America's Ryan Bailey to secure 4x1 gold in world record fashion. Rio was just a formality for him, really, although the road there, including injuries, self-doubt, and the re-emergence of Justin Gatlin, wasn't a smooth one. But when it was time, Trelawney's finest was undeterred, and he swept the board. He would be called a triple winner today if not for Nesta Carter's failed drug test, which nullified the 4x100 world record win in 2008. In the end, though, the legacy he carved out, dare we say, will never be matched again. He made track and field the undisputed national sport, and he is the undisputed greatest to ever put on a pair of spikes. And that's our list. What did you think? We know you're not going to dispute number one, but what about the rest of the list? Did you think it was in the right order? Was there a great moment from Jamaica's Olympic past that you think did belong in the top 10? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to OriJinal Jamaican. Follow us on Instagram at OriJinalJA and check out our clothing line on Teespring as well as our website 876411.com. I'm Mark from OriJinal Jamaican and I'll see you next time.